It's Gaming with the Guys, Bungles After Dark. I'm back, and we're going to have a little bit of a chat here tonight. It's been a long time since we've done one of these chats, and I thought, you know what? We're gonna try to do this on a little regular basis instead of focusing on primarily Bushido, which is kind of what that's been our shtick. We talked last time about Shatterpoint, which was a little bit different, but now I want to get into something that's really out of left field. And we're going to talk, the main topic that we're going to talk about tonight is cons, essentially. Gen Con just wrapped up on Sunday. And so people who were there, I know GCT was there. Some of my other favorite games did not have booths there. But what makes a good con is Gen Con. I always consider it's the oldest, biggest con. I think this year, I'm not even sure what attendance was. But I do know someone who was there that could give me some insight as to how big a Gen Con. I want to say Adepticon. Drinking game for tonight. Every time Greg says Adepticon when he means Gen Con, take a drink. So prep yourself for it. So to get this rolling and to get a little more insight on it for someone who is actually on the ground in fabulous downtown Indianapolis, Indiana, USA, I'm bringing in my good friend, Dr. Dice.
Jesse!
Okay.
Hi, Gaming Greg. How are you?
Oh, I'm fantastic. I did not go to Gen Con for another, I don't know, however many years it's been in Indianapolis. Instead, I got to spend too many days in lovely, stupid hot Houston.
No. Gen Con has now been in Indianapolis for 20 years. This was the 20th anniversary of Gen Con being in Indy. You haven't been to Gen Con in 2 decades, my friend.
2 decades. I know.
I don't know how you do it. I don't know how you do it. I've gone every single year. I mean, I never was in Milwaukee, so maybe I'm just picking up where you left off. Maybe that's what's going on here.
Well, that may be. I know. When I went to my last Gen Con, which was Milwaukee, there were several life changes that I had going on. Mainly, it's there was Gaming Jason, who was Toddler Jason at the time, and money was super tight.
Much like a 7 you have spawned.
And so when you're raising a child by yourself, you might cut out the cons, especially when it was in Indianapolis. And then as the years went by, it just didn't seem like something I wanted to do. So for my con experience, so aside from Adepticon and things like that, my Gen Con experience, because let's talk primarily about Gen Con. So before I roll into it, how many people were at Gen Con this year? What was I heard they broke records.
The wrap-up email that came from Gen Con, of course, they send a lot of emails. Their marketing wing has gotten fantastic since COVID. The wrap-up email said 75K plus. So, and believe it, you can absolutely believe that there were 80,000 people there. I have no doubt about that.
That's what a lot of people were saying. That it was really crowded. And again, when I went to Gen Con, it was crowded in Milwaukee, but they only had, I think they topped out around 35,000, just maybe touching 40 before they left to Indianapolis, which was able to support a larger group. And I think the one that was around the 30s was when Gen Con and Origins combined for a year. One of them had an anniversary, and the other one just combined for that year, and it was huge. But I know, just watching other people's blogs about Gen Con and whatnot, the lines were huge. I'm not going to try to poke the bear here on this one, but I will say the one that everybody complained about was Lorcana. The line for Lorcana was obscene.
I can tell you a story. Tell you a story.
Story time. Here we go.
Stories about this. It's story time, kids. So, yes, as you might know, and by the way, I sent the manager of marketing for North America an email last night. I was still miffed off about it. The excitement around Lorcana was palpable. Everybody knew that it was going to be big, right? Nobody knew how big. But when you had people that were camping out, now I had gone to trade day. And so I was there on Wednesday, and I was walking around the convention center, and I saw a dude with a lawn chair parked right in front of the vendor hall door, and I'm like, okay, this is how we're going to roll. Well, apparently they scooted that group of people out, and what ended up happening was a line formed outside of the convention center, and they waited all night. They waited all night for this, and a line formed. Now, Gen Con does not typically do lines, right? What in past years, when there was a hot thing, and I remember there being hot things for Catalyst, and there were hot things for many other properties. And what happens is, if there is a line, it's a small line that wraps around your booth. Or what winds up happening is they'll hand out like some kind of ticket to say, come back between this time and this time. And with WizKids does it with HeroClix. So there was no reason to believe that might not be the case with something like this. You could say whatever you want. Ravensburger was completely caught off guard here. Whoever was part of this dropped the ball, and they dropped it hard. And I'm going to tell you the same thing for the Gen Con. They dropped the ball and they dropped it hard.
Yeah, I heard. So what I heard from one of the different bloggers that talked about, and that's why I brought up Lorcana in particular, was they were going to do some kind of limited release for people who were coming into the con. So not just going to their booth, but going into the con. So people were lining up for that, and they were lining up late. And then, but the problem was, Ravensburger, that's the name of the company that's doing it.
Right.
They didn't coordinate it with Gen Con, which Gen Con probably would have snuffed it out anyway. They didn't coordinate it, so they were not essentially corralling people. So the people who were standing in line, they were getting superseded by people who were showing up that morning and just essentially cutting line, because Gen Con's like, well, you stood in line, that's your problem.
Well,
and people were getting those limited releases. Yeah.
Yeah, having been in that crush, I can tell you that part of what you're hearing is incorrect. Okay. So, because I was there, right? So, and this is probably the best thing, that I'll have a story to tell, and ultimately this game will live and die in 2 years, and watch me, that one's going to bite me in the ass. But I'll have a story to tell.
That's a different discussion for a different day. Games that bite us in the ass.
Yeah, exactly. Well, there's plenty of those kind of things. But I was in this line, and I was there when the Gen Con staffer up ahead said, there is no line. And I was there when everybody started fast walking.
Now, did he go like, there is no line?
It was suburban soccer mom walk. and everybody's there. And now all of a sudden, we're all bunched up in the front of Hall H doors. Now, mind you, the doors in front of Hall H, for most of the Thursday running of the nerds, they call it. If you're not familiar with this event because you're a minis gamer and you haven't really been to Gen Con, or you're not familiar with this, seriously, go on YouTube, take a look at it. I might even
the running of the nerds it's a thing. It's if not, maybe we'll find something, and Eric, you could throw it up on your Instagram or whatnot. We'll throw a link into this so you could see. It's something to behold.
Oh, it's all of these convention doors, and they tell you they do this whole spiel: don't run, be considerate, whatever. And we're all in the gaming community, and we try to look out for each other and stuff like that. But
except when someone says something's free and limited, promo and limited.
Yeah, you say promo and limited. That's rough. And so what happens is the doors come open, and it's all the doors go open, and then, well, anyway, what happened was the people that had been waiting the longest kind of got pushed out of line. By the time they got in the doors, there were two lines that had formed. One was, we didn't really think it was a line because we were in the other one. And it was, if you look to the left, there's people just going behind where the Ravensburger booth is. And you figure, okay, they're taking advantage of the fact that there's this huge mass of humanity waiting to get this particular game. So they're not in line for all this other stuff. So if on Thursday morning, if you wanted a copy of any of the hot games, Cosmoctopus or Sky Team or Ancient Knowledge or World Wonders, you probably got it. You probably got the games you wanted that day, because all of us idiots were sitting there in the Lorcana line trying desperately to get a game. So, honestly, this is what I told the guy, the Mike, the manager for Ravensburger. This is what I sent him in the email. It was that part of the experience of any game and building that excitement and getting yourself ready to play. It's playing at a convention, being able to get a bunch of games in, being able to trade some cards with people, being able to have some laughs and have some memories. So you can go back, because you know as well as I do, building a community is hard. We've both been doing it for 20 plus years with these games. Building communities is really hard. So there are going to be times when it just drags on you. And it's like you need to have that reserve of good experiences to call back on to be able to pull you forward and keep you going. And there's a lot of people that are very demotivated right now.
Yeah.
So are they going to sell out of the game? Absolutely. They're going to sell the thing left, right, and sideways. That doesn't make it any better than an old lady. Well, I don't think it was an old lady. It was definitely somebody got pushed out of a wheelchair, though. I'll tell you that.
Seriously?
Absolutely. There's an article on Polygon.com talking about the chaos, the Lorcana chaos at Gen Con. I recommend you take a look at it. Yeah, it was a thing.
Now, just because, two things for those who aren't familiar with Gen Con and whatnot. And again, I haven't been there, but I am familiar with the Indiana Convention Center. Hall H is the big exhibit hall, and it is monstrous in size. I mean, it's 2-3 football fields in length.
The thing is, I mean, it's there's Hall A through So
you come in an H, and then it's the whole thing. Yeah, it takes up the whole thing.
There's a huge vendor hall, and they made errors were made. Yeah. Errors were made, but I don't want you if you've never been to Gen Con, I don't want you to listen to this experience and be like, oh my God, I'm never going to this. Well, this was a once in a lifetime thing. I have never seen anything like this in the 20 years I've been going to Gen Cons. Never once have I seen anything like this.
I've heard of experiences like that. Nothing with the lines, but I've heard experiences with promos and giveaways and things like that. That seems to be something that happens either about every other year, every 3 years. Some company comes out with some gimmicky thing and they're doing a giveaway, and they either don't bring enough, or they don't judge the interest in it, or they don't understand when you put the word free and limited, that people lose their effing minds.
Well, other companies, I think, have learned from their mistakes and they've gotten better about it.
Yeah.
Whatever happened here was an absolute travesty of a mockery of two shams.
And I think the internet's helped too. So, for example, I'll use GCT as an example. They will have some con exclusives, and it's just you get your pre-releases well in advance of everybody else is going to get their pre-release. Yeah. However, at the same time, for those either A, that aren't going to be able to get there, or B are not going to go to the. I should say A, not go to the convention, or B, they just don't get to the booth or something like that. You could still get it online. You're not going to get as quick as the person who is there and going to be instantly gratified by getting it, but you're going to get it. And usually they'll have some kind of sale or discount to go along with it. So you're going to get it at like 10, 15% off or whatnot, or maybe free shipping from the UK. So there's a lot of companies that will do that. So now you're seeing a lot of sales, a lot of things, internet sales. So they're trying to, let us people who aren't going to go to Gen Con in on the Gen Con magic, get excited about Gen Con, get the buzz going about it, and B, generate more sales and not necessarily have to worry about running out completely at the con itself. You've seen it grow over the years. First it was, we run out at the con. Then they start parsing out, okay, we've got 50 for sale on Thursday, 50 for sale on Friday, 100 for sale on Saturday. Why do we do 100 on sale on Saturday? Because Saturday's always insane.
Oh, sure.
And then Sunday is another 50 or 25 because they're not going to get that many people, and that it is what it is. So you've seen a progression over the years of people doing that. One thing that I wanted to have you explain, why is Lorcana so flippin' popular? What is Lorcana? Let's just talk about that real quick.
I think I've got the rules right here.
Oh my God.
Disney Lorcana. It's a
there's Disney right there. Should tip things off.
Yeah. So it's Disney Lorcana is a collectible card game that is made by Ravensburger, but it has all beautiful. I mean, the art is gorgeous Disney art, and it's got the characters that you're familiar with and you love. You've got the princesses, and you've got Gaston, and you've got Mickey and Minnie, and you've got characters from some of the more obscure movies, right? Like, I don't consider The Emperor's New Groove to be one of the ones that when I think of Disney is like, I've got to go watch that. But maybe some people do, and those people there's characters in there, that represent like Cusco, Emperor Cusco,
Okay.
which was David Spade. So he's definitely not my favorite. But anyway, there's all kinds of fantastic art and characters. I love the game. I really do enjoy playing it. Unlike your typical trading card game, you're never going to suffer from a lack of resources available to use because every single card has a symbol up in the top corner. That's how much it costs. And some of them have a swirly symbol around them. And that swirly symbol means that you can put it face down in your ink pile. And then that is now, it's going to pay for the cost of other cards. So you're managing your resources and saying, hey, maybe I don't want to use this card in the future, or maybe it's not as useful to me right now as it needs to be. So I'm gonna put it down, forego using it for the rest of the game, and I'm going to use it to pay for other cards. What you said earlier, though, is very funny because I'm talking about how great this game is, but I got to tell you, when you talk about the Gen Con exclusive, okay, do you know why the line for Lorcana was so crazy? It's not because some people are going to say, well, it's because it might be hard to get booster boxes, but I'm going to tell you, I don't think it will be.
Eventually, you'll be able to get it. The market will be. They're not going to pull a GW.
No. It's check this out. Check this out. Your local game stores might have a hard time getting it on the 18th, which is when it drops. It actually drops next week, right? So think about this right now. We just stood in massive lines to get a product essentially about a week and a half early. Again, it wasn't about getting the product early, but it was more about playing for me. But anyway, you get the product a little bit early. But guess what? If you can't get it at your LGS, you're going to get it at Target. You're going to get it at Walmart. You're going to get it at Best Buy. When does Best Buy ever have a Lorcana tournament? What is Ravensburger thinking other than ching?
I mean, you go to Wal. I mean, you can get They're just following the same gimmick as Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh, which are sold at Best Buy. They're sold at Walmart. They're sold at Target. So your friendly local game stores will carry the stuff, and they're going to host tournaments and they're going to have that leg up on things. They'll also buy your cards, which Walmart won't do. I want to see the day that you walk into a Walmart and say, hey, I got this ultra rare. Are you going to buy it off me? And the Walmart guy goes, security aisle 1. No,
they don't.
Not
going
to happen. They don't have security at Walmart either. Yeah. So that I've seen card games sold at Best Buy, so that doesn't phase me too much.
I feel like it's too big of a shotgun approach for me. Maybe I'm just an LGS purist, but
I think with COVID and years of Magic cards and things like that, you're seeing that at least card games and specific card games have gotten traction where you could sell it in not the dingy friendly local gaming store. I call it dingy just because I'm there. You walk in and you're going to see Gaming Greg there with his unshaven go, hey, I remember when I used to play the Battletechs and it was called Battle Droids? Why don't you come into my Elantra and take a look at my Battle Droids collection?
No. I like it. I think it's good.
But so it's easier for those kids that want to get it, and their moms and dads will go to the Walmart and they have it strategically, all those card games placed right by the registers to say, ooh, can I pick up some of these? It's almost like I'll age myself. Gaming Greg is old. When you were a kid, what was right by the register? Baseball cards.
Sure.
You buy a pack or two of baseball cards. That's all with a
spectacular
piece of gum in there. Delicious.
It's like chalk. I don't understand why anyone ever ate that stuff.
It's flat and crispy.
It's like eating drywall. Like, why would you do that? I'm chewing on some drywall.
It gave you healthy teeth like a horse to just crack that first piece of gum. Snap. Like plastic.
Dentists everywhere appreciate your business. Yeah.
They do. But that I think that's some of it. But Lorcana, and then you add to the fact Lorcana's Disney and it's Disney characters. That's going to have an even wider reach than Yu-Gi-Oh or Pokemon or Magic. So
I think Magic is so not to go too much into a collectible card bent, especially given the genre that this channel typically covers, but
We're spreading
Magic
our
is,
wings.
yeah, well, I'll tell you what, our boys over at Wizards of the Coast are definitely spreading their wings. They've just announced. So last year they've done this Universes Beyond sets for Magic the Gathering. So they had Warhammer 40K, which we all knew about. We were like, hey, that's kind of cool. And it was kind of cool. But then Lord of the Rings. Lord of the Rings. All right, awesome. I mean, and I know you're a big Lord of the Rings guy.
Big Lord of the Rings guy.
Yeah. I mean, you're actually able to tell us everything that's going on in the Malarian. So, and then on top of that,
just finished rereading it again.
Did you? Wow.
It was hot in Houston. There was not a lot to do.
It's so hot.
90-something degrees at night. It was really bad.
Nice.
And I wasn't in downtown Houston. I was on the outskirts. So yeah.
Yeah, that's okay. I can understand that. They just announced that they're going to do Final Fantasy. So it's kind of a video game series. They're doing Final Fantasy. They're doing Fallout. So they're actually going to be a Fallout Universes Beyond. I think that's actually the next set.
Yeah,
I am so stoked about that. I love my Fallout.
Oh,
that is a fantastic IP. There's just so much going on. So that's going to be a great thing. But all that said, Disney Lorcana, it's Disney.
It's Disney.
And it's
basically a license to make money.
It's a license to make money. And I don't believe they're going to really do the secondary market the way that Magic does, though. Right? So I think
interesting.
I think they're going to overprint the sets. They're going to do it intentionally. Yeah, I think they're going to do it intentionally in an effort to make sure that everybody's got plenty of stock, so you don't have somebody with the full art, because there are like 6 rarities in that game. Full art, foil, gorgeous, enchanted, that's the highest rarity, Mickey Mouse, that, you don't want some kid to not be able to have a chance to get one of those. So,
they'll
be around.
I mean, Magic and Yu-Gi-Oh! And the thing like that with their legendary or rarity things. Part of it is, is it a cool card? Part of it is how powerful is it in the game? Right. So that's a little bit of a driver of the cost. So what remains to be seen is if Lorcana is going to end up getting to that competitive level.
Oh, I can tell you it already has.
It already has? Okay, well then you're going to see the secondary market's going to spring up. It's just a question of how the price is going to be on it.
No. I agree with that. I did get to play in a starter tournament. I was fortunate enough to be able to register to play in a starter tournament. And so I got to do that. So I at least got 1 starter deck, and then for every round that you played, you got an extra booster. So I've got like a starter and like 4 boosters, right? Nice. And I got some really fun cards, and I'll tell you what, it's a great game. It is a fantastic game. I really enjoy it. The only reason people were losing their minds is because when Lorcana was first announced at D23, which is a Disney Expo, those cards, there were 7 that were released with the little D23 logo at the bottom, like tiny little bottom of the card. The market for those things went berserk because there weren't that many attendees at D23, not by comparison to Gen Con. Now at Gen Con, if you bought a box, if you bought the starter, whatever it was that you bought, you got the promo. When they ran out, and I didn't realize this until the last day, when they ran out of stuff on Sunday, and I was standing right in the front of the line, and I could taste it. It was like, new card smell, I'm going to be cracking packs. No, it wasn't.
Just grabbed right there.
No, it was a gigantic, it was just, so what ended up happening was I went up to the booth, and I kind of just explained, hey, look, this is what happened to me. I got screwed on Thursday. Friday didn't work out. I didn't even try on Saturday. I tried again on Sunday. I was right there at the front of the line. I was told you had plenty of stock. There wasn't. Anyway, the girl took pity on me. The lovely woman at the register, I think her name was Kelsey, took pity on me. Such a sweet heart. She said, look, if you buy anything, even something for like just one of the other games, buy a pin. I can give you a promo. So then I didn't buy a pin, but she still gave me a promo. So because but actually, truth be told, she gave me her pin. She actually took off on purpose to give it to me. Such a sweet woman. I must have looked like I was about to cry. A fat 50-year-old man crying about a card game. Ladies and gentlemen, what kind of world are we living in where that is actually a real reality?
It's the best reality.
No, it's terrible. I'm going back to minis games. No, I'm not.
Oh my God.
I'm done. Anyway, so we should talk about minis games, though. We should talk about the presence of minis games at Gen Con and the difference.
Well, let's talk. So now that we've gotten our Lorcana out and whatnot, her Lorcana out.
That's right. We can have all of that and just start right here.
Let's talk cons. So, Gen Con.
Yeah.
Gen Con's had a long and storied history. For those who don't know it, it started with humble origins back in the Horticulture Center at Lake Geneva, Wisconsin, and
Didn't
probably
it
was
start
just
in Gary Gygax's basement. Wasn't that the first?
It might have been that too. Who knows?
And
I don't think they had that many people there.
D&D, he and Dave Arneson, and then
it expanded from there. Went from Lake Geneva. I don't know if it went straight from Lake Geneva to UW Parkside, which is in Kenosha. Mm-hmm. My very first Gen Con was 83. And it was the very. I've been to a lot of lasts for Gen Con. That's maybe why I don't want to go to Gen Con.
Everything.
Is my very first Gen Con was the last Gen Con at University of Wisconsin Parkside. It was glorious, absolutely glorious. It was mainly role play games, but they did have a lot of miniature games. I remember specifically there. That was where Games Workshop. And I think they were at Games Workshop, or they were Citadel Miniatures at the time. They had this huge fantasy layout, and in Parkside they had the main campus building, and in the student commons where you go down and you'd eat, it was like a tri-level area. In the middle area that you would have to go down from where you would go to where one of the gaming halls, I should say gaming halls because it was just in the classrooms, and where you would go and eat. And in fact, the actual vending hall, you had to walk outside and go to the athletics building, and it was on the gym floor in there. The basketball court was where they had the vendor hall. But there they had this huge setup of this fantasy village, a castle, and they just played this huge siege the entire weekend. I got in on Sunday for the last hour, and because they wanted to go back to England, they're like, all right, the defenders of the castle have like 3 shots of arrows left. We're like, what? I just got here. They're like, the con's closing in like 2 hours. Live with it. You could tell they were done. But that was a great experience. I loved that. That was also the con, and I've seen this recently. Either Margaret Weiss or Tracy Hickman had talked about it. Dragonlance, Dragons of Autumn Twilight, the book had just come out, and at that Gen Con, they had of course, because it was a college campus, a junior college campus or college campus. They had a theater. They did I don't want to say it was a theatrical. It was like a reading / theater kind of production of the first Dragonlance book. It was so cool with Hickman and Weiss doing it. It was really, really cool. So it was magical. I was 13. It was like the best ever. I played D&D. I got some miniatures in. I bought a bunch of crap. We camped. And I hate camping. We must have sat in the auction hall for hours because you don't want to go back to the campsite with no air conditioning and communal showers. That's just creepy. So we were there. It was great. And then it went to Milwaukee. Milwaukee was I loved Milwaukee. It was like hour and a half, 2 hours from where we lived, and we started my group of people that we were going with. We would go again. I would go and play role-playing games, and other people could chime in if they've done this. Role-playing at games, and maybe it's a little different now for Gen Con in Indianapolis. Role-playing games, when you go to Gen Con, are kind of hit or miss. You either have really good judges that know their shit and it's awesome, or the judges are kind of like, and it's not great experience. And then usually what happens is when you find that judge and he's running maybe 1 or 2 or 3 events or something like that, you lock onto him for years. And then it's like a group of people will just do that. And so you go every year to see what new adventure, Joe Schmo is going to be doing that year. And it's just a spectacular time. Then there were miniature games. The 40K. I think 40K released at a Gen Con a couple years later. Then there was, and that was the rise of. I don't want to call it the rise, but it was. I would say the Gen Con Milwaukee years was the penultimate time for BattleTech and FASA. So I would play Combat Simulator for Star Trek. I played BattleTech. Nope.
Now,
Well, okay. Let's
right?
talk about now. Do they have actors acting out scenes from different things and people getting all hot and bothered when they had the marriage of Hans Davion and Katrina Steiner?
Nobody has time for that crap because they're
Oh my
playing
God!
games
No,
of
then
battle.
it's lame.
They're
Lame. It's all
playing games of
commercialism
BattleTech.
crap.
And you know what else? Not only are they playing games of BattleTech, but Mike friggin' Stackpole was right there. I shook the man's hand. Mike Stackpole was there. Beautiful stuff.
Did when you blew up Mike Stackpole's mech, did they take the mech and smash it with a hammer to do realistic battle damage?
I bet they could have if
They
they
couldn't, no,
wanted
but
to.
they didn't. They didn't.
Well, because I talked to him at the booth. Maybe they did that afterwards.
Well, that was in the booth when they did that event.
Well,
they would do these big events inside the booths at
they
Gen
they
Con.
can't do it inside the booth right now because they're too busy selling like hotcakes.
Well, they were still selling stuff there.
BattleTech is there's a renaissance. BattleTech is experiencing a renaissance.
So it's a renaissance. So it's building to the frenzy it was back in my day with FASA.
I think it's even bigger.
Of course it's going to be bigger
than a frenzy.
It's bigger.
I think it is. They've got Alpha Strike, and then they've got
they have it to appeal to a lot more things.
Oh yeah, no, they're doing great. I mean, not to take anything away from the old days, and nostalgia is going to be what it is. But
I look back. Trust me, I look back over rose-colored glasses at nostalgia. FASA was the big booth there. TSR had their big booth. Those were the two big boys. That Palladium Games had a booth. That's a whole different thing. That's my Robotech experience with that Kickstarter. That was. I knew going in who I was dealing with, and I said, "Well, let's roll the dice and see what happens." And in Greg fashion, those dice came up once. Critical fail. But at least I got something out of it.
That happens.
So Gen Con, that Gen Con in Milwaukee, I think was very campy. That's where my group of players, we started to form our own group and started running events there. And it was miniature events. So that's where I started trying to change from role play to miniature, because my role play experience was always kind of hit or miss. But my miniature experience was on the grow.
Sure.
And then the other trick you got to remember, when the early days it wasn't when you were doing there, they did have some competitive tournaments. The game that comes to mind where they had kind of competitive tournaments, really competitive tournaments, was Babylon 5 by Mongoose Games. I can't remember who it was, but they would do that. But when we would run 40K events and we would run BattleTech events were the big thing that we did. My buddies ran King of the Hill for years, and that was super popular. And then Hunt the Monster. We had a couple things that we did with gimmicky things and whatnot. You
were friends with a bunch of the Marauders?
No, you would know him. We'll call him Gaming Paul. and our other friend Chris, they were the ones that would put together these gigantic foam monstrosities every year for the hill and whatnot, and then we'd stash them away at somebody's house. And then we would collect, because BattleTech didn't have, they had the Ral Partha medals.
Right.
But because they were ripping off a lot of the design, I shouldn't say ripping. I didn't say ripping off. FASA was using a loophole.
What I was led to believe is that they acquired them, that they were licensed to use them,
and then they found out that
right, and then later on, many years later, I think that the story goes that Harmony Gold didn't actually have the rights on that anyway, so they were basically
to the mecha designs. Yeah, it's a little weird. So long and the short of it is, you were able to buy. Robotech was in its heyday back then, and so you could buy basically model kits of the Robotech things. And since most of the mecha designs for early BattleTech battle droids was the Robotech figures, we bought a crap ton of those. So that's how I got into doing some tournament organizing and things. But you weren't doing competitive tournaments. It was more narrative. You had a scenario, and people didn't necessarily bring their own figures. We supplied all the figures.
Sure, sure.
you know, and there were objectives and there were things, and and this is when TSR ran it. So, you know, when the guys were running King of the Hill, if they had a few extra players, you know, they wouldn't turn anybody away. But
Sure.
then that would dilute the price. They go, hey, can we have a few more gift certificates? And basically, prize support back then was you got a generic gift certificate that you could use in the vendor hall. Like,
Oh, very nice.
yeah, so that was pretty sweet. So they would go, hey, can we have some more prize support? They would throw them like a bunch of $20, $25 gift certificates or whatnot to give away, or to give away as prizes. So, you know, it was really good. The main reason we liked doing those events too is we would make sure that we would run something in every time slot except on Sunday. Towards the end of Sunday, we would kind of peter out. But it gave us a point where we could just put up all our crap.
Oh, it was self-serving. It was because they didn't have lockers. If they had lockers, you never would have run anything.
They would close the minis room down around midnight, and then we would go, you know, and then we didn't have to lug stuff around, so it made running miniatures easy there. And Milwaukee was a smaller town. I mean, and it closed down early. I remember Saturday night, 10 o'clock. You'd look out of the convention center. The stoplights weren't working. The stoplights were just flashing red, so everything became a stop sign in downtown Milwaukee, right down Kilbourne. It's all red lights flashing, you know, or Clybourne. It was hilarious, but you know, it was a different feel. So a lot less organized minis tournaments. They did exist. Usually, it would be people who would be sponsoring them, or you know, local clubs doing it. But it was a lot more narrative, or just people getting together with their collections and having people play to learn the game. So it was almost like community building. And it was 40K, it was BattleTech, it was B5, it was Star Trek Combat Simulator, and a lot of historicals.
Oh, sure.
Lots of historicals. Oh, sure. Now, when I stopped going to Gen Con, you know, it kept going. And I think Gen Con even grew where they had a Gen Con West Coast. They had a Euro Gen Con, maybe, I think. I don't know. I can't tell you much about what's going on. Everything that I see with Gen Con is either through blog posts, secondhand, or my friends who go. I have friends that have gone for years, not just Dr. Dice here, but I have other dear friends that go, and they would be entertainers, and they would do things. You know, they would go and play in events, mainly role players, a lot of Call of Cthulhu, some D&D, some Goodman Games, Dungeon Dice Crawl. You know, so that's their main shtick that they go to. All I could tell from Gen Con now is that, well, one, it's in Indianapolis. Indianapolis is not one of my favorite cities. It's okay. I don't get excited about it. It's weird that I say that I get excited about Milwaukee, but, you know, it is what it is. And two, it's just there's a crap ton of people.
There are. But you know what? That's okay. That's all right. So Gen Con today. Let's talk about what Gen Con is like.
Gen Con today. You are the expert on this, because yeah.
So there are, when you want to talk about miniatures games, let's not. I mean, so that you do have some smaller events, right? Walker and the boys from Arena Rex are there religiously every year, right? I saw Walker on the first day. Never had a chance to go back and see him again, but yeah, no, it's always good to see him.
And they were last, and just to interject, they were very last minute this year to get their event in. So there was probably room. So they probably didn't sell out of tickets for it. But yeah, I know Walker was there. The guys usually for Infinity do something. I know
they
GC.
Had, oh yeah,
they did. Oh, yeah. They had some stuff.
So here's what they.
Yeah, go ahead, give me the rundown. Yeah.
Hall E. Hall E is the other side of the vendor hall. It's a equally large sized hall. And so this hall has got a lot of the open play areas and the play testing areas for board games and things like that. And then you have the different companies all have their areas set up. So Catalyst had their area set up. AMG, Atomic Mass, had their stuff set up where they had some tables for Shatterpoint, some tables for
Marvel
Crisis Protocol.
Uh-oh. We've lost Dr. Dice. Not sure what's going on there, if it's my internet or something else. So we'll see if we can get him back in just a second. Yeah, I've seen that it was split up. I for major tournaments, I don't know. I'm pretty sure Atomic Mass may have run some competitive events. I think they may have had some thing for Crisis Protocol for Shatterpoint. I know GCT did not run, other than demos, and I think they did those in their booth. I know they didn't run any major tournaments there. So there's a lot of different things. Well, it looks like Dr. Dice is back without his wonderful visage. Let's get him back in. There he is.
Martha. Okay, I'm picking up right where I left off.
Yeah, I did some dancing for you. So I was talking. I think Atomic ran a couple events, competitive events for Crisis Protocol and for Shatterpoint, and I know who else was I thinking? I know Bushido did not.
Bushido did not. The Infinity may or may not have.
Infinity usually does narrative stuff there, but they may have had some little event going on the side.
Yeah, what typically happens is they'll have like long tables. We'll say 16-foot long tables, so you could fit maybe a couple of games whatever on them, and all the way back. So maybe I don't know 4 sets of those. That's what typically you'll have for Infinity, and then you'll have some Aristei out there, and you'll have some there's just a bunch of BattleTech being played. And then you've got a lot of card games over in that area. This is the open play hall, by the way. This thing stays open all night long. So if you want to go and play games, you just go and you play them all night long. It doesn't matter. Every hotel also has a ballroom. Well, the JW also has a ballroom that is a 2 ballroom wide that stays open all night where you can sit and play games in there as well. Gen Con has become a lot more of a board game convention. There's still a lot of role-playing going on. There's a ton of role-playing going on. But in my mind, it's primarily a board gaming convention. You've got your vendor hall with a lot of board game companies, and this is where they're doing their board gaming releases, right? So you don't release your board games at Origins. You don't release your board games just willy-nilly whenever. No. If it's a big release, this is your summer blockbuster, it's releasing at Gen Con.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And then you're going to have your cool promos and stuff like that. So that's what Gen Con has become. It's a lot more of that. At one time, Wizards of the Coast and Magic had just a ridiculously large presence in the hall. It's kind of consolidated down a little bit. So, it's good though. It's very good. But if you're into miniatures, Adepticon is the con that you want to go to. I think you still have
and so that's what you're looking at. So now when again, Gen Con is going to be the mother of all cons. There may be cons in Europe and whatnot that I haven't attended. UKGE, Essen.
That's the one.
Essen, but I don't know how much actual. I thought Essen was more, and those of you who are over there can correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, please. I thought Essen was more trade and less. How can I explain this? Less Gen Con-y and more trade showy.
It's probably a lot more Gamma-y, right?
Gamma-y.
It's probably a lot
Gamma.
more, it's probably a lot more Gamma-y.
For those who don't know, explain what Gamma is, kind of.
So Gamma is the game. What is it?
Game
Association, Game Manufacturers Association, I think is what it stands for. And most game shops are members of Gamma. It's the trade organization that represents just the gaming industry in general, right? And they hold a convention every year in Las Vegas. And so that's where, if you are a game shop owner, you go out there, you take in a show, you have some lobster, and then you really enjoy playing games and talking games with people. And a lot of the reps are going to show you about games and things like that.
And especially new games too, right?
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. And talking about stuff that's coming out and whatever. And I think Essen kind of also scratches a very similar itch.
Okay.
But Essen also releases a lot of new games. Yes. And at Essen, they also have, I believe that's where they do the Spiel des Jahres Awards, which is the Game of the Year award, right? And the coveted Spiel des Jahres, it's ridiculous. I'll probably say that wrong. But the Spiel is a very prestigious award. And if you win it, it goes on the front of your box.
There you go.
Right? So it's just part of the deal. Yeah. But Gen Con is like that. I think it's Essen and Gen Con, right? Those are 2 really big ones. And then Everything else is a little bit smaller, but maybe a little more niche.
Yeah, UKGE is probably pretty big. I would almost put it on par with Adepticon.
Yeah, okay.
I do know that they have. I would say its breadth of gaming is more like Gen Con, because I did have a friend that she went over. She does the con circuits and whatnot for Goodman Games, which is role play, and so they had a huge booth there. But I do know a lot of the miniature games there, board games there, so on and so forth. Adepticon in the U.S., there's 3 major tournaments, or I shouldn't say tournaments, conventions, and they really are pretty much miniature orientated. There's Adepticon. There's Nova on the East Coast that's coming up in a few weeks.
Yep.
And then there's LVO, Las Vegas Open. Adepticon has a very 40K flavor to it. I would say all 3 of them have a very GW, 40K, AOS, whatever kind of GW flavor to them. Adepticon is branching out more. I know Nova's trying to. What's that?
I personally love that.
I love it too. And there was, I really got to dredge up the, I'll see if I could dredge up the video and put in a link, and I may have mentioned it in another bad episode. One of the other YouTube guys, I know, bad. I still kind of get over that when we thought somebody was just saying their stuff was bad. And no, that's the acronym for your Bungles After Dark. Oh, yeah, we're dumb. But somebody did a fantastic, I don't know if it's Tabletop Minions or somebody else, they interviewed one of the founding members of Adepticon and just gave you the whole history of it. It's fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. And having gone to Adepticon for probably close to 10 years now, having them change venues multiple times, seeing it grow, compared to, and again, I don't know as much about Nova and I don't know much about LVO, but what I know about Adepticon, which really sets it apart from the others in general, is for con its size, to not charge. If you're going to attend and play an event, you're paying. But if you just want to go and walk the hall and buy crap, it's free. You can just walk in, take a look at stuff, maybe demo something in the booth. You're not going to be playing an event. You're not going to be doing, this, that, and the other thing. But you could, from a vendor standpoint, it's fantastic because, yeah, you're paying a high price, but if you're looking at attendance wise, maybe they say, we sold, we got 3,200 attendees, 5,000 attendees, 6,000 attendees. That's paying. That's right. Paying attendees. So figure maybe for people who just show up with, 5 kids, a stroller, and their wife, yeah, just to go shop the hall and take a look at stuff that's been painted and so on and so forth. That's a lot more. You could probably push that up to, you're never going to reach, at least for Adepticon and where it's at right now, you're never going to reach Gen Con kind of numbers.
Well, and you wouldn't anyway, right? You wouldn't anyway.
It's limited focus.
Minis gamers are a different animal, right? It's a completely different environment. And you're not going to go, you might play a board game or two from the library at Adepticon, but you're not going to go to Adepticon to buy and play board games. Right, you're going to go to Adepticon because you are a minis gamer and you have minis and you want to play with those minis, and you want to probably play in a tournament or some type of organized play environment. That's what Adepticon is, and I'm going to tell you, Hank and the boys, they put on a fantastic show. They every single year, it's just getting bigger and better every single year, and I love those guys. I really do.
And again, that group is voluntary. It's all volunteers. The show that they put on is absolutely amazing. My hat's off to them. I know Nova started out this very much the same way, and I know they're diversifying their event offerings. I know they did a lot of GW stuff initially, and then I know Infinity was going really strong there. I know Bushido is going this year, so. I
might need to go to Nova. I might actually need to go to Nova because I talked to the guys at the GW booth, trying to get more of my Eldar discontinued Forge World Eldar aircraft for Imperialis, and apparently
Imperialis.
the truck that was supposed to be going to Gen Con never made it. So and all of that stuff was on the truck.
Oh,
so I think it's going to be probably, they said, maybe going to Nova. So
okay.
Yeah, I mean, could I buy
go to big DC?
Sure, might as well. Why not? I got an Antlives out there. It's fine.
There you go. And then there's LVO, Las Vegas Open. Now that one, and again, that's probably the one that I know the least amount. But from what little I do know, it seems like it's a very competitive orientated convention.
Sure.
I've heard weird stories about things and whatnot that the vendor, I won't even delve into it because it's all rumor and hearsay. It's just really kind of it from the stuff that I've heard, it just has a bizarre kind of feel to it. But if you're looking to play games and looking at a very high competitive level of games, that's your tournament.
Well, I'm going to go out there.
Or if you're on the West Coast.
There are so many good conventions, smaller conventions that people don't even know about, probably in their own backyard. I mean, there's RockCon in Rockford, Illinois, of all places. There's
RockCon, Gamehole Con
in Madison, Wisconsin. Fantastic conventions, smaller shows, but it's the kind of show where you're going to have room to walk around. And the dealer hall isn't 2 football fields long.
It's
whatever.
The thing that I like about those, there's like Dragonfall. There is what's the one down in Bloomington? Dragonfall is going to be up in Lake Geneva. It used to be in the Chicago area, the Chicago burbs. That's an all charity event. The one down in Bloomington, FlatCon, they've been doing that. That's another charity event. That's down in Bloomington. There's Warfare Weekend, which used to be War Machine Weekend down in St. Louis. And on the West Coast, I know they have a few different ones out there. Everybody's got their little regional ones. And what I like about the regional ones is, for example, like RockCon. RockCon was cool, largely historical, but they had a whole bunch of different little things. And you're always surprised at what you find, because you have your own little local game groups and they have their favorite little game that they've been playing for years, and you don't see it because it's not as mainstream, or maybe it just never got around. The one example I'll give, now granted this is Gen Con Milwaukee, but it was something that they also played. Eric, got to help me on this one. What's the historical one that they run usually right after Adepticon in the Chicago area? Oh my God. Oh, bugger. Anyway.
There you go.
It's usually like two weeks after Adepticon, and it's a little. It's not Historicon. It's anyway. I won't worry about it. Anyway, the game that they would play, it was a naval game, Modified Fletcher Pratt.
Oh, not Fletcher Pratt. Oh my God.
Loved that game. But we would never see it anyplace else. You would either play it at your house, which was almost impossible to play. If you know anything about Fletcher Pratt, to give you an idea how Modified Fletcher Pratt worked, to do actual combat, to see if you hit your target, because you have destroyers and battleships and cruisers and carriers and submarines. Well, no submarines, but World War II naval combat. Instead of rolling dice to see if you hit, you're usually playing on this huge space, and you look at your ship, and let's say I got a Iowa class battleship. I've got 3 main turrets, 3 turrets of 16-inch guns, each turret with 3 guns on it. I might have 4. Correct me if I'm wrong. In the comments. In the comments. I know you won't know.
Who's going to comment? Are any of you people going to comment?
You'd be surprised.
You're
going to be surprised.
There's going to be no comments other than that bald guy's loud. That's the only comment.
Anyway, when I swing my guns to shoot all my guns, so I got 12 guns on this thing, and I'm shooting my battleship guns over at a cruiser, across the room. I go, all right. I'm going to say that cruiser is 220 inches away, and I'm going to drop my shots from my 12 guns at 1/4-inch intervals. So you run the tape measure out to the center of that ship, If it goes past it, you take it past, and then wherever that tape measure ends, then you start pulling your 12 shots back at quarter-inch intervals, and if anything hits the ship or gets within a certain, you have like a half-inch zone or a quarter-inch zone around the ship that they would still count the hit. Then they would actually roll for damage, because then they would see that the shell would hit. It would be high explosive or whatever, armor piercing. That you get your choices. You tell them what you're shooting, and then they would apply those effects on the ship versus its armor belt. And that was it. You could we would spend 12 hours at a con playing that game. Can't really play it in your basement. One, your basement's usually not too big. Two, your basement probably has ways for you to cheat. And by cheating, actually, Dr. Dice's basement is perfect for it. Those tiles are 6-inch tiles or 12-inch tiles. You would count the number of tiles from where your ship is by looking up over to where the ship is, and then bring your no, you went too high. Down. You can see the tiles have the. If you look behind you by the dragon's head, they've got the shape to them. You could just you run your shots out. It would help you. It would help you range in, is what it would do. Anyway, you wouldn't really see those, aside from a couple oddball cons. And the only reason it was run at Gen Con, it was because it was in Milwaukee, and the guys, the gaming group that did it was out of Gurney or Zion, Illinois, which was like a stone's throw away from Gen Con. And they would run it at the local historical con. That was it.
Yeah, and I don't think you're going to see that at Gen Con at this point. I mean, you might. No. Maybe the thing is,
I think those guys are dead.
Catalog, well, here's the thing.
It's terrible to say.
The Gen Con catalog is it's huge. It's so big for events that you're not. It's kind of gotten to the point where, how colleges no longer publish a paper catalog. Now, if you want to look and see what classes you get, you go online. It's kind of the same deal for Gen Con. So, because you have all of these ballrooms and all of these other conference rooms and all of these other places. And
you're doing them all at different hotels, too.
Yeah. And the way that the hotels are set up, you got the convention center, and then there's these skybridge walkways that take you to all of the hotels. So you don't have to walk outside if you don't want to. Of course, if you don't, then you're missing out on St. Elmo's, and then you are soulless, and I do not even want to be your friend. But But there's all kinds of just amazing things to see and do, right? You cannot do it all. Gen Con, you cannot do it all.
No,
you will always miss out on something, because it is just that massive, and it's wonderful.
Yes,
it's wonderful. Gen Con is wonderful. I don't want anyone to leave this video thinking that I'm down on Gen Con. I'm not. Am I? You could be upset about the way something got handled, and yet at the same time, it's not the organization. It's
not the convention. It's not the convention. It's something beyond the convention's control, or it's just some other jerk gamer did something stupid.
I think it was just bad choices were made and bad timing and whatever, and it is just is what it is. But
if you're how could I kind of put a bow on this nicely? Adepticon for me is the convention that I like. It has a couple things going for it. One, it's very mini-centric. Two, there's several things. So, two, it's really local. So it's I would call it a medium size. I would call it a medium sized con, medium to largish. Gen Con being huge, enormous. It's local. It's mini centric, and it covers everything they need to. Now, even Adepticon is starting to get some role play games in there. Not many. There's a few. I see there's somebody who keeps running some Call of Cthulhu games and things like that. They have some board games, but again, it's not really stressed for that. It's really mini-centric, and that's my con. There's a lot of local cons that do the same thing. If I want to do a local role-play con, I go to GaryCon, which conveniently runs exactly the same weekend as Adepticon.
Yeah, I do hate that. I do hate that, because I would love to be able to go to both.
Mm-hmm. And even GaryCon does run some miniatures there. It's a really small room, and it's largely historical and things, but they do have that. But it's really role play heavy. Very well, GaryCon, go figure. So that's always that's something to do. So really, you just got to kind of find that. So in the comments, tell us about your local cons from where you're at. We're looking at we're taking everything from a Midwest point of view, and I would say probably a very focused Midwest view of Illinois, Chicago area, because I know there's other gaming cons up near like Sheboygan in Wisconsin. I know there's other stuff down in Missouri other than Warfare Weekend.
Mhm.
I don't know if there's any others in Indiana.
I'm sure there are.
Yeah, there
I'm sure there
probably
are.
is.
There are probably
Illinois
gaming.
has a bunch, and they're
Yeah,
spread out.
but
So
it's any place where it gets cold and it gets unpleasant to go outside. You're going to find amazing gaming communities because they're going to want to sit inside and play some games, right? And then also down in South Florida where it gets stupidly hot and humid. Again, I want to sit inside in the air conditioning and play some games. So, yeah, if you are, doesn't matter where you're from, take some time, research, look for your local gaming conventions because
yes,
there are going to be great events for you to go to. If you are a minis gamer, make sure you get to Adepticon at some point. It's worth the trip. You won't be sorry if you could stay in the Renaissance Convention Center. All the better, right? Because that's a great hotel right there.
oh yeah, it's
Yeah, and stay in one of the adjoining ones. That's fine too.
yeah, and that whole area is getting built up. I know lots of people are renting B2B, doing
The Airbnb thing. Yeah.
Airbnb. There's several hotels around there that you could stay at. So Adepticon. I'd love to be a spokesman, and maybe I need to do an episode. I talked about Dice about this in Gaming Jason, where we just give you the lay of the land prior to Adepticon of what's around Adepticon, restaurant wise, where the hotels
Oh, we're
are,
doing
and
that.
things
We're
like that.
totally
We're doing that.
this year.
So he's gonna. Dr. Dice is the one that kicks me in the ass to make sure that I do things. So
Yeah, we're doing it.
gaming Jason, because he respects me and I'm his father. He doesn't say, "Old man, get off your ass and do it." Which, if he's watching this now, he probably might say.
No,
But Dr. Dice will.
Oh yeah, because I'm not quite as old as Gaming Greg, but I'm up there, and our time is finite, and our voice will be heard. Damn it! So you will listen to us, and you will enjoy it, and you will have a great convention experience if you do.
Absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely. Before we sign off here, just some quick things. So, Dr. Dice, what hobby? I'm going to ask you before I go into hobby projects I'm doing
do it.
and what rule sets I'm reading. What hobby projects you got on the hopper? Because we're going to hopefully make this a weekly thing, so we can keep ourselves on task potentially for some hobby projects.
5 different hobby projects I'm working on right now. Right.
What you got?
The really big one. The really big one is to be putting out a bunch more content, right? So I've spoken at Gen Con. Gen Con's a great networking event as well, right?
Yes.
So I spoke with a lot of the different marketing people from the various companies. And so I'm going to be putting out a ton of content in order to really get the viewership going and let people know, hey, I'm here. If you want to hear my opinion on games, if you're interested in being entertained, if you just want to listen to some moron blather, whatever, come to me. I'll fulfill that for you. You can paint, do whatever. But anyway, I'm going to be putting out a lot more content. On the actual terrain side of the house, though,
yes.
I did listen to. There was a video about using the Green Stuff World glass
rollers,
glass rollers, right?
Yeah.
And I know that you and I have used them for cobblestone for our Carnivale figures. So there is a video where instead of using like green stuff, this guy actually uses, and I'll see if I can find the video, and then I'll send you the link for this.
Sure.
But he uses DAP, basically a acrylic silicone hybrid caulk, and he uses that on a substrate. And the substrate happens to be like a little vinyl mat. So I'm going to be using that to make roads and canals and things like that for Carnivale, because I want to really get that on the table as well again. And I know we've started building a community at Grognard's around Carnivale and Fallout and Bushido and Moonstone. So we've got to really get these games to the table.
Yes.
And then I'll tell you what number 3 is here, and then I'm going to leave it at that.
Okay.
My number 3 is while at Gen, see the drinking game. While at Gen,
drink up. Yeah. No one drink on me.
While at Gen Con, I saw a game by Gail Forstein coming out in a couple of weeks called Star Trek Away Missions.
I'm a Trek. I love Trek too.
It is a great little game. It is a board game that uses minis. Right, it is not necessarily a miniatures game, although
would you call it a dungeon crawler?
It is. it's not truly a dungeon crawler because it really is 1v1, or it could be 2v2. But essentially, what you've got going on here is the set that's out right now is the Battle of Wolf 359, where you've got Picard has already been assimilated. Spoiler alert, and you've got the Klingons who are also fighting. Well, actually, it's the Borg and it's the Federation, and the Borg are beaming onto the Enterprise, and they're running around the Enterprise, and they're trying to assimilate the ship and its crew. And you are fighting back against them, and they can adapt to your weapons, and it is a very, very cool game. But the minis are so god awful, and
that's a whole different review. We'll save that one.
It is. But so I am 3D printing Modifius. Very luckily, Modifius makes some beautiful Star Trek miniatures.
They do,
and so I am currently in the process of printing up a Klingon in the proper scale, and assuming it works. And I'll know in about an hour, assuming it works. Then what I can do is I can go ahead and start printing. And the lovely thing is it's only 5 dudes to a side. It's basically 5 dudes to a side. I think the Borg end up having maybe either 8 or 10, just because they are a swarm kind of thing.
Okay.
But there's only 5 Klingons in the pack. There's only 5 Romulans in the pack.
You only need 5 Klingons to do anything. Come on.
Run everything. You can take 5 Klingons take over everything. So anyway, that's my hobby projects.
That's your hobby projects, all right. On mine, I have to get some more painting done. I finished up a couple miniatures this week because I'm working agonizingly slow. I got my light machine gun toting elephant done for Drowned Earth. I did. What else did I do? Oh, I finished up Olin for Moonstone. Mm-hmm. So I'm happy to get both of those cranked out. I got another piece of terrain. It's right back here. Let's see if I can get it into camera. I painted up another piece of terrain for Bushido.
You're getting really good at this.
Nice 3D printed piece of terrain from my good friend Brian. And I got a boatload of other stuff coming. He's actually I bought into a Kickstarter for some Carnival terrain. It's basically Venetian terrain. Some of it ruined, some of them not. So my projects that I'm looking to do, one, I'm looking to paint some more miniatures. I've got on my desk, I've got my little chameleon that I'm working on for Drowned Earth. Let's see if I can. Working on him. I got a bunch of Infinity figures that I wanted to do, and then I still got some Carnival ones, because now that it sounds like we're going to be playing some Carnival, because we got some of our local meta to buy into it at Gen Con. I probably need to get more of my Rashar done, other than just my normal Beast guys. And then I probably need to start building the metric ton of MDF terrain that I have. So I'm getting some Venetian stuff 3D printed. I have a bunch of MDF ruined from TT Combat terrain that I need done. So it's ruined Venetian setting. So I want to get a bunch of that done, because that terrain can double also as Drowned Earth terrain. I figure a Venetian, it's a holiday resort that got caught up in the jungle thing with all sorts of water spots and everything. So I think that'll be pretty cool to do too.
That's Epcot. What are you talking about? It's like a real Epcot. Yeah.
And then
we'll get the big Mickey ball with,
Mm-hmm. And then other stuff that I need to paint. I have a bunch of Galds that I need to paint for Clash of Spears.
That's
I really want to. It's galling, I know. Dun dun. So I will. So I want to, because I really do enjoy that rule set. We also discovered that the guys from Fighting Hedgehog. That's the name of I think that's the name of the distributor. But the guys who do Clash of Spears, aside from doing Clash of Katanas, which I have other things that I have to assemble and paint for that, they also have decided to take that rule set and make it with more fantastical creatures. So if you like to do I would call it a medium-sized skirmish game, and like the rank and flank, it's a really slick rule set. I know you were also looking at Saga, so we may be playing that in the near future too. Who knows?
It's gonna be a fight on, right? We're gonna have Saga. We're gonna do it the same day. We're gonna do Saga, and then we're gonna do, Clash of whatever.
Clash of Spears, Clash of Dragons, Clash of Katanas, all of the above. So yeah, I got a lot of projects I like to do, and then of course, much like Dr. Dice, I decided to be stupid and downloaded Baldur's Gate 3.
Yeah. Yeah.
so so
Yeah.
figure what I'll be working on a lot of. I got a job, I've got Baldur's Gate 3, and I got a metric ton of terrain construction and painting to do.
Well, before I go, I can tell you what you don't have. True dungeon chips, bitch. Oh my god, yeah.
All right.
Yeah,
Well,
that's another nerdy obsession. We'll
that's
talk
a
about that
nerdy
later.
obsession. We'll have to talk about that sometime soon too. So to tie a knot in this beautiful bow of an episode, we hope you liked listening to us blather on. We hope you got a little bit of insight as to what a massive convention Gen Con is and what Adepticon is like. We probably didn't go as much into Adepticon as need to, but I think you probably have picked up on that as watching other episodes. If you did like what we've done, throw us a like, ring the bell, let us know that we're on the right track, doing stuff you like. Also, take time out to go visit Dr. Dice's game reviews on YouTube and on Instagram. Subscribe there too. You could always appreciate that. Lots of insight. We've got other games coming up. I know both of us on the horizon for our Kickstarter. We've got Catalyst Games Leviathans, and we're both crazy about that game. So pretty much you'll be seeing stuff on both of our channels about that in the near future. And near future, I mean October, when they actually ship it. And finally, if you haven't already, comment. Like I said, we've asked you for a few comments here. Tell us about your local cons. Tell us about your local con experiences. Tell us things you like, don't like about cons. Love to hear about these things because again, I live in Illinois, but there's some cons that I've never heard at, or I've just forgotten their name. So it's a great way to spread the word about cons, especially the small regional ones. Those are the ones that are really hard to find, and those are the ones that probably need the most help. And they really have some fun games out there too. So if you have that information, throw it in the comments. Last but not least, subscribe. We do appreciate that. We're not getting any money off of anything right now, but we really would love to see those subscriptions go up. And what we'll do with that, we'll hopefully be able to return to the community and give back. That's always been my big thing that I do, is give back to the community. So the more subscriptions I get, the more chance that I can get some more get a sponsor, not Mountain Dew, and and hopefully start giving back to the community in more than just my wit and singing prowess. So with that all said, thank you so much for watching, Dr. Dice. It's been great having you on as always, and looking forward to seeing what you're going to be cranking out here in the near future. And for the rest of you all, hope you have a great day or evening wherever you may be. Bye all.
Enjoy your local con!